freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gaiman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Mexico Open. Joining me to break it all down, Greg Ducharme is here. Hola, Greg.
Hola, amigo. We are working our way eastward on our way to Florida. A quick stop south of the border. Fourth time we've played here at Vidanta Vallarta. So pretty cool golf course. Usually leads to a pretty good tournament.
Yes, it does. Now let's get this. We were talking about this in the green room. They have done a rebrand of the resort. So the resort is now called Vidanta World. And I was like, oh crap, they changed the golf course, Greg. They did not. This is still Vidanta Vallarta. This is the Greg Norman course that we have seen, like you said, the last handful of years, but now the resort has a new name. So very, very confusing stuff, but we've got it all figured out.
Yes. I think we know the ins and outs of this golf course, which it's pretty cool. I think for DFS purposes, there's really some things with this golf course you can take advantage of. It seems to be a pretty specific type of player that has success here, which I think bodes pretty well for us.
The other thing, this is a national open, which I don't know how you feel, Greg, but I think that these should all be just elevated, right? And this actually has been on a very good trajectory. This was an event that dates back, my God, forever. And it has worked its way up through a variety of different tours, PGA Tour Latino America, the Korn Ferry Tour, getting the bump up to the PGA Tour a couple of years ago. So this is a cool event. I love this. I think all the national opens should be held in such high regard.
Yes. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? If you had the Scottish and the British, well, the British is a major, obviously, the Scottish, the Canadian, the Mexico Open, if those were elevated, perhaps in Australian Open or something like that, It would be, it could be pretty cool. Because they're significant events to win. This one is probably the bottom of the barrel as far as those are concerned, which I know is, but it's, the worst of the best, which is not a bad place to be. The field is on the weaker side, and it could definitely be improved if you change the status of the event.
Right. Yes. That's not. Yes. The field is weak. This is by far the weakest field that we'll have on the PGA Tour so far in 2025. However, Greg, there will be an optimal lineup. 6 golfers will be in it. Somebody will win, and we're going to have to figure it out from there. Josh, I have up on my screen right now, and you could put it into the feed, please, the scorecard for this week. So here it is. This is Vidanta World. Vidanta Vallarta, par 71, 7,400 yards on the scorecard. This is the Greg Norman course that we have seen a handful of times. He not only designed it, but also did a recent redesign on this course, Greg.
Yes, and it's long in some kind of interesting ways, right? The par 5s, there are 3 par 5s, which are 2 of them are very long, over 600 yards. You have some 500-yard par 4s on the golf course. The average par 4, and one of them is drivable, but the average par 4 is like 457, somewhere in that range. So what it leads to is a lot of really long approaches, right? Significantly more than PGA Tour average. I mean, almost 60% of your approach shots, 65% of your approach shots are outside of 175 yards. You got a couple that average at 165. So they're pretty long approach shots. You're talking about 7 holes. And if you add in the par 5s where the average is a lot less because you're not necessarily reaching in 2, those are outside of 200 yards as well. Your second shots on par 5s. So it definitely promotes, there are a lot of long irons. And I think that's why you've seen winners like Jake Knapp, who's a long hitter and very good with long irons, hits his long irons really high in the air. Tony Finau, a phenomenal ball striker, especially with long irons. And Jon Rahm, who's a great ball striker all around. So that's definitely the type of player or the type of skill set that you're looking for. And Rick, this is also fascinating. If you look at your secondary stats at that chart, again, just to go over this again, I'm not looking at any one of those in particular. I'm not running a model based on, approaches from 75 to 100 in the rough.
Right.
If you look at all of these, you got a proximity bucket, proximity to the hole, 50 to 125 yards in the rough, 175 to 200, 225, 200 to 225, fairway proximity, left rough proximity, 150 to 175, right? These are all proximity metric. They're all iron play metrics.
Yeah.
And I think focusing in on that 175 to 225, those two buckets is a really good strategy this week.
By themselves, they're all very noisy, but put them together and it's like 9 consecutive approach.
Yes, which we say every week, approach play is the most important thing on the PGA Tour, week in and week out. It's the number one thing I'm looking for every week, but this is a lot more than usual.
The field for this week, we'll start getting into the names in a second here, Greg, but the field is obviously weaker. So some of the names at the top of the board are not going to be names that we've spent this much of our salary cap on, but also we're getting a handful of guys who have lower status on the PGA Tour, maybe making their first through third start this year. We've got guys who play primarily on the Korn Ferry Tour, some guys who have played a lot of golf on the DP World Tour. We've even got like Padraig Harrington, who plays the vast majority of his golf on the Senior Tour. So we are getting a collection of different calibers of golfers that we are going to need to kind of sort through this week.
Yes, it's really interesting. You look at a lot of these DP World Tour players, and they've played like one event. Some of the guys that got in through Q School, they've gotten into one event, and this is the second. So it is extremely important for them to kind of elevate their status and get going in the reshuffle. It's one of the hardest things about getting on the PGA Tour. You don't get to, you get on there and then you don't get to play. So it's really challenging. And when you do get the opportunity, you have to take advantage of it so you can fill out your summer schedule. So it's important. Some of these guys, we don't have a great handle on where their game is because they haven't played a lot. But I do think looking through this field, Rick, if you can put prices aside, there are some really interesting names and you can build some fun lineups.
Hey, I've got this card. Where do I turn it in for a start?
Right.
That part's a little bit harder to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes. All right. We'll go through some of these names. We'll start at the top. We'll work our way down as usual. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
And we're back. Here's what I'm showing on my screen right now. It's the cheat sheet on rickrungood.com. There are 3 golfers, Greg, in the DraftKings player pool for this week that are over $10,000. Akshay Bhatia, $10,700. Kurt Kitayama, $10,200. Rasmus Højgaard, $10,100. All of them interesting for their own reasons. Where do you want to start, and how do we separate these 3 from each other?
This is a tough one. Now, there's a couple reasons why. The first reason is they're all overpriced. Right? You're just not used to paying this kind of price for these players. Akshay Bhatia, who I see you clicked on there, Rick, is definitely the best of these 3. He's playing the best. And there's a legitimate reason, in my opinion, to play him this week. And it's not that he came in 4th last time he played here.
Yeah. So just to put this into perspective, because I think, Greg, we're going to have to get over this early, but it's hard to, because here's what Greg's talking about. Last week, Akshay was $7,100. He was 82. He was 73. He was 88. He was 89. He was 6,700. He was 6,900. He was 8,400. Now he is the most expensive golfer on the slate at $10,700.
Yes, and he should be looking at the rest of the field. But so let's just go to positives here. Akshay Bhatia, first and foremost, has been putting like a wizard.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this goes back to, well, every event in 2025, he's gained strokes putting. Okay. And at least significantly, at least a shot and a half, which is just fantastic. The change that he's made since going to that broomstick is remarkable. But the results haven't, you haven't seen him near the top of leaderboards, and it's because his ball striking hasn't quite caught up, but it's getting back to what made Akshay Bhatia a PGA Tour player in the first place, which was extremely strong ball striking. And we've seen it now the last couple of weeks that iron play has come back, that driving game has come back, and we've seen a tied 32nd and a tied 9th as a result. The one area that he's been weak in has been his short game, and that's far less important here on what are we talking about here? Zoysia surfaces?
Paspalum.
Paspalum. I wanted to say POA. It's not. We are done with POA.
No, you know what? That is your mulligan. My mulligan was this morning when I was recording my preview. I ran the model at the end of the show with POA because it was so locked into my brain. After I talked about Paspalum the entire show, and then I was like, I'm
POA.
an idiot. And POA. And someone pointed it out to me after the fact. And I was like, yeah, that's just a mistake. That's on me. But it is platinum Paspalum throughout the golf course.
Yes. Which that, just so everybody understands, it's much easier to chip off of. Okay. It's not as grainy as say Bermuda or Bentgrass or POA. When you get on the greens, they tend to break a little less. It's a beautiful putting surface. It tends to be a little slower. It's like a little stickier than many of the other grasses. So guys that struggle with short game and struggle with putting we tend to see a little advantage when we get onto these type of surfaces for them. It seems to level the playing field. So yeah, things look really good for Akshay.
Kurt Kitayama is next. And I don't know, Greg, if 2025 has been the start that Kitayama has wanted. Ended the fall in really good form. T9 at the Shriners, 5th at the Zozo, and then the break, which we've seen that kind of slow some guys down in the past. He doesn't have a finish inside the top 35 in 2025. It's nothing horrible, just the one miscut at the Farmers Insurance Open, but not a lot of good results. And then Rasmus has been kind of the opposite. He's got some really amazing results, including being in contention at the Phoenix Open before falling on Sunday. And then he had one of the worst missed cuts at the Genesis. I think he finished dead last, Greg. I mean, it was miserable. So what are we doing with these two?
Well, Kurt Kitayama is like circled on the list for this tournament. I think heading in that he's the guy that should win. This seems to fit his game to a T. He's driving it fine. He's putting it fine. Like, he's doing everything okay. The putter has been maybe a little weak, and maybe that's why we haven't seen great results from him. But everything else looks really good with Kitayama, and his specialty is long iron play. You get at 200 yards with Kitayama. He excels 175 to 200, an area that he excels in. So I think it's just a really strong course fit for him. The results haven't been great, but I do think there's a good chance that they improve. So I like Akshay more than Kitayama because of recent form. Rasmus, this is the guy that I want to play, but I'm really nervous about it. All right, because let's consider what has happened to Rasmus Højgaard. All right, he on the DP World Tour was a phenomenal ball striker, specifically with irons, dominating fields with his iron play. Now you watch him swing the golf club, and you can see that. He's come out to the PGA Tour, and he finished tied 22nd at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Signature event, hit the ball like he did on the DP World Tour. So I'm like, okay, the transition has been fine. This is, you can look at all those numbers, and their DP World Tour numbers, they carry over. Great. WM Phoenix Open. He gets himself into the last group and has a really poor Sunday. It was a really disappointing Sunday. And then an awful performance at the Genesis. I'm wondering, is he spooked? No, I want to come back to him. This is like a great opportunity to come back to a really good player in a weaker field. But did what happened in Phoenix spook him? And I don't know if he can get past that, because it seems like it hurt pretty bad. So I want to go there, and I may, but that's what I'm nervous about.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've gone back and forth here. I can forgive a lot of this. I mean, Torrey for the Genesis, it was tough. It was a big boy golf course. If you start getting out of position, things can get away from you very quickly. But man, that wound is fresh. You know, it hasn't been a couple weeks where I can say, oh, he went home to his coach and got everything all figured out. It's like, well, nope, he's right back in the fire again.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for Phoenix, like if he just kind of snuck his way into a T12 in Phoenix, I'd feel completely different. But that was a T12 going backwards.
Yeah.
And then you get that at the Genesis, and now I'm a little worried. My instinct says he's going to be fine. He's just that he really is that good. And I could see at the end of the week saying, well, he was just the best player in this field. Of course he won. But I don't know. We haven't seen a resurgence or a comeback from him yet. So that just leaves the question. But hey, no risk, no reward, right, Rick?
That's what they say. 8 golfers in the $9,000 range: Sam Stevens, Steven Yeager, Patrick Rogers, Aaron Rai, Harry Hall, Michael Kim, $9,200, Beau Hossler, Taylor Moore. Okay. Again, very jarring. Michael Kim was like the minimum price last week. Now he's $9,200, and he's the 9th most expensive golfer in the field. That's what we're dealing with. We had some guys who played well last week. I'm thinking of Patrick Rogers. What do we take out of this area that we can work with?
3 guys I really like in this range.
Okay.
2 of them played well last week. So let's just start with Patrick Rogers.
Okay.
Driving the ball great, obviously swinging well. He didn't have a great week with his irons last week. It probably cost him the tournament on Sunday, but he's never been a very good iron player. That is, and if you talk to Patrick Rogers about it, he's just, he doesn't get very aggressive. So he plays a little too conservative, in his opinion, into greens. And that's why you'll see high greens and regulation percentages and poor strokes gained approach metrics. That's why. But he still makes it work. So tied 3rd last week, and he's played in Mexico. He's got 3 top 10s, right? So he's played all 3 starts here. 10th, tied 6th. That's a pretty darn good record. And in one of them, in his tied 6th, he lost strokes approaching the green. So while I am kind of going against the model, this is iron play. Patrick Rogers seems to have a way to make it work otherwise. I think that's probably because he's just really, really good.
It's also worth noting that even though these approach numbers in Mexico they're not amazing, they are better than his average, and that's over 12 rounds. So whether that is a golf course that sets up better for him, maybe it fits his eye, maybe he's more comfortable off the pass palm, whatever it is, it does appear that something is better for him here. And I think that 12 rounds over 3 years is like a decent enough sample size to come to that conclusion.
Yes. And also one of his strengths is putting, which last week we talked about Patrick Rogers and how it was likely that he would putt better at Torrey Pines. And he did. I think he outperformed my expectation, but I thought he would have a good week because everything has been okay. It's just he was missing one of his strengths. With that back, I'm on the bandwagon. Another one, Rick, and this is a similar situation to Patrick Rogers. He's at 9,600. It's Steven Yeager. Now, Steven Yeager is kind of tough to figure out, but I'm of the belief that he's just really good at putting scores together, putting numbers together. He's got a good record here, as you just shared.
Yeah.
His driver has become a huge asset, which on a big, wide open golf course like this, I think that can go a long way. and he has put together some really impressive streaks with his putting. He lost 7 strokes putting last week and finished tied 44th. I think you see a resurgence there. So he would be on my list. I think Steven Jaeger might be underpriced, even though he's the 5th, as far as talent is concerned. He's the 5th most expensive player in the field. I still think he could probably be a little higher.
Yeah, starting to put together some lot better metrics. 2025 has been pretty good for him. And also his fall wasn't bad either. He had that runner-up finish in Utah. And the numbers around the Mexico Open for how often he's played here and the results that he put up is basically going to be unmatched for this field. Okay, so we've got 2 of the 3. Who's the 3rd?
Michael Kim.
Okay. I thought, see, because to me this says golfer who's starting to figure it out. I knew you were talking about the longer iron shots. That feels Michael Kimish.
It fits him to a T. Michael Kim leads this field from 200 to 225 yards. Best in the field, second best on tour. That is an asset for him.
That also passes the eye test too. Every time I see Michael Kim, he is flushing some big high 4-iron or something.
Yeah, he loves it. And he plays a draw as well. And I know he hits a high draw, but there are some golf courses where if it's drawn at all, it's really hard to hold the greens. And this is not that kind of golf course. You'll be able to, they're a little more receptive. So I think it's a really good fit for him. Gives him a little room off the tee. He missed the cut last year, but he finished tied 30th the year before. And I think his play right now, tied 2nd in Phoenix, tied 13th last week. I think his play warrants the price at 9,200.
Michael Kim is a guy that you only care about the moment. You just don't even. History doesn't matter. Just like what is he doing right now? That's all that matters.
Yeah, don't look too far in the history books.
Definitely don't look too far.
Because it could scare you. But he's past that.
You're not going to like what you find. Yes, he is definitely past that. And also, apparently, he's gotten at least one lesson from Joe Mayo, who's, I swear, his rate goes up every time they say his name on the telecast. Michael Kim, I think, got a lesson from him in Phoenix. Okay, we're going to continue this. Speaking of scary, it gets a little scary here, but there are still some interesting options. We've got to get to the 8s, the 7s, and those pesky 6s. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. The $8,000 range on DraftKings. There are 11 golfers. I'll go through them very quickly. Greg Griffin, that's Kevin, Alex Smalley, Jake Knapp, defending champion, Justin Lauer, Nicholas Norgard, and then we round out the bottom of this range. CT Pant, Thorbjorn Olsen, Nikolai Højgaard, don't confuse the two, Grayson Sigg, and Ryan Fox. All right, it's time.
Well, there's 3 more that I like in this range.
Let me guess.
Okay.
Kevin Yu.
Yes.
Alex Smalley.
No.
You're a Smalley guy. All right, hold on.
I am a Smalley guy, but he didn't make my list.
One more guess. Jake Knapp.
Yes.
And you're like a sneaky Grayson Sigg guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew
Bravo.
it. Thank you.
Why don't we just start with Grayson Sigg?
Sure.
8,000 flat, which I think is a pretty good price. He's coming off a tied 9th at the Farmers, tied 32nd in Phoenix. He's gained with his irons in his last 3, 5 out of his last 7. Right, that's been great. We've seen some success in every area of the game. The putting would be the weak area, but again, he putted well at Torrey. And again, I think this is the kind of venue where if you're not a great putter, but like when I look at what Grayson Sigg does on the greens, I think he's not a great putter, but he's not lost. He's not fighting it, if that makes sense.
And also his last, if you just add up his last 8 rounds, here he's a positive putter. He lost a little bit in 2023. He was positive in 2024. So maybe this is like you were saying, Greg, a little bit of a neutralizer for him.
Yeah, and tied 19th, tied 18th his last 2 starts here, and his worst finish was the first year, tied 33rd. So I do think this is a really nice fit, and I like where his game is trending at the moment.
Also, it's his birthday. Does that help?
The birthday narrative.
The birthday narrative. 30 years old now, injected with wisdom and just a lot of life experience.
This is when PGA Tour careers take off in your 30s. Well, it used to be that way, probably 30 years ago. Not anymore, but it could for Grayson Sigg. Well, why don't we work our way up, Rick? We'll go to Jake Knapp.
Sure. The defending champion's $8,600. He hasn't done much since he won this event, but it's getting better, Greg.
Yeah, it is. He's starting to show. Like, look at, if you're watching on YouTube, you could see this approach play column was just abysmal for basically since he played okay for a little while after his win, and then something happened and he just lost it with the irons, but it's back. All right, a shot and a half or more in his last 3 events, a tied 33rd, a tied 44th, and a tied 17th. We know what he has, what he can do with his club head speed and ball speed. And if you remember last year, he kind of lost it on Sunday and the driver started getting wayward. But there's enough room out there. He was able to piece it together. So I don't think that's too much of a concern. He's had some good putting weeks in his last 5 starts. I think this is like a comfortable place for him and a golf course that fits his game. And I think his game is at a place where it's at least not broken right now.
Yeah, I'm with you here. He's clearly trending in the right direction. This is clearly a good golf course for him. And I think that he is a little golf course dependent at this point in his career, which is okay. That's okay. But he has a very unique skill set. And when you match it to a good golf course, you're going to get good results. So yes, I'm with you on Jake Knapp. He's 8,600. The top guy of this range, working our way up, is Kevin Yu, 8,800. You have been loyal to Kevin Yu, and he is paying off with dividends right now.
Hitting it great. Patrick loved him last week, and maybe in Phoenix. No, I think it was last week. Patrick was all over him at the Genesis. He finished tied 17th. That was off a T16 in Phoenix. Again, he's doing it with his driver. He's a great driver of the ball, and he's doing it with his iron play. And the thing that's held him back is his putting. And again, go back to that. I think the paspalum greens are a little bit of an equalizer there. So I expect in Kevin Yu's first trip to Vedanta World, I expect good things from him.
Yeah. So we've talked about his amateur career a lot in the past, and yes, he's starting to put together some really good finishes. Even that went back to the fall. What I like about him is he's not just a T32 every week guy. Yeah, he's going to miss some cuts, but he's also legitimately going to mix it up in the first couple pages of the leaderboard, which is always good to see. And maybe snaps off and wins like he did in Jackson. I hardly remember that. That feels like an eternity ago.
He kind of came out of nowhere, if I remember correctly. Like he was around, but you didn't think he was going to win, and then all of a sudden he did. He's just a wonderful talent, and I don't think we're far away from another Kevin Yu win. And this is the kind of field where he could really do it. I mean, he's at 8,800. It's there's not a lot of guys that are favored ahead of him, and he's probably very fairly priced, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Now, the 7K range is where things start to get really interesting. I'm not going to name them all, but there are 37 golfers here. The top of the board being Matt Wallace, Mac Meisner. The middle of the range includes Chan Kim, Adam Svensson. The bottom of the range, just to name a few, Matty Schmid, Takumi Kanaya, Vincent Norman. What can we pick out of here, Greg? Because quite honestly, this is where we start to get to that spot of guys that we might not have seen recently. I mean, I'll just click Michael Thorbjornsen's name because I was looking at this earlier. So he's played 3 times this year is what you're going to see a lot of. You're going to see a lot of these guys that have played 3 times: the American Express, the Farmers, and maybe like one other thing, maybe Sony, something like that. So we're going to get pretty small sample sizes for a lot of these guys.
When I saw Michael Thorbjornsen in this range, I was like, oh, this is the guy. This is the perfect golf course for him. I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at this driving performance. And when you're losing strokes off the tee like he is with his speed, there's a problem. That's very concerning to me. So it's almost like the field doesn't matter if you're fighting your own swing. So I unfortunately went away from him. I also saw Patrick Fishburne here, and I was like, oh yeah, here we go. Same story. Struggling off the tee, struggling in every area of his game, and he's missed his last 3 cuts. So I think you could take a risk and go with the Fishburne. I'd rather go Fishburne over Thorbjornsen, but I'm like, no, on both of those guys, which if one of them wins, I'm going to be kicking myself. Too much research, I guess. Then I found a guy that, go ahead.
I was just going to say that is, God, what's the phrase? Paralysis by analysis?
Yes, except I'm not paralyzed.
No,
I decided no, and if I didn't do any research, I would have decided yes.
decided no by analysis is the new phrase.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like when you fill out your March Madness Final Four bracket, and someone who just goes based on jersey colors beats you. Yeah. That's one of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
I did come across someone in this range that I like.
Okay.
Now, it's a small sample size, but I like where Ryan Gerard is. Ryan Gerard's at 7,600. He's got a tied 37th, tied 51st, tied 15th. He's gained approaching the green and putting in all 3 of those. Now, Ryan Gerard has played well. He came in 5th on the PGA Tour back in 2023, and I believe the Honda Classic back in 2023 he came in 4th,
right?
And so he has played some really good golf on the PGA Tour before. Had to go on the Korn Ferry Tour last year, won out there, got his card, and he's playing some really solid golf in his limited starts. So I look for Ryan Gerard to take advantage of these limited playing opportunities.
Yeah, his last 8 starts go back to August. T7 in Boise on the Korn Ferry, or T3 at the Simmons Bank Open. That was in mid-September. Hasn't missed a cut. And then, like most of these guys, or it seems the majority of these guys, the 3 2025 starts. His are Sony, American Express, Farmers. Those are the fields he's gotten into. And like Greg said, approach and putting in both of those for Gerard. Okay, that's a good one. I'm gonna favorite him so I don't forget that.
Okay, awesome. Here's another one that you probably already have favorited. Chris Ventura.
Yeah.
He's at 7,300. And he's got 4 starts this year. Okay, so he's seasoned. He did miss the cut at the Sony, but then since he's finished inside the top 60 in his next 3, but it includes a T4 at the Farmers Insurance Open. His iron play has been really strong, and I, like you, Rick, believe in the general talent of Chris Ventura.
These are the weeks where you just say, "Give me the talent." I don't really care what they've been up to. Give me the talent. You're right. The T58, T4 at Farmers, and then T49, like that, plenty good.
Yeah. And so you're kind of going on limited sample size, where you could go with like a Sam Ryder, who's at 7,400, who's been great with his irons, but he's struggling off the tee. He's making cuts. And I just kind of question the upside. He did finish 5th in Bermuda, but I'm worried about his driving game right now. Maybe the wide fairways help him, but he's been on commercials and he's played on tour for a long time, and we know him. I'd rather take a chance with the Chris Ventura, I guess. Is the point.
Same. I would rather take a little bit of a unknown with upside. Lonto Griffin's the same price as Chris Ventura. I'm there on Lonto. You talked about the around the green situations. He has a big chipping deficiency, but hoping it's not going to beat him up too bad. He's made all 3 cuts here and has lost strokes around the green in all 3 of them. So
yeah, I still worry about. I don't know if the pass palum helps his chipping issues. He has a really hard time with it. He just has a real there's something broken with his short game.
Yeah,
and he'll tell you that. But I love where he is with his golf swing for sure.
what else? Can I pull anything else out of here?
Yeah, this one's kind of fun. 7,100. Trey Mullinax.
Wow,
Yeah, never thought I'd say it.
that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Nope, me either. Tied 18th at the American Express. Tied 32nd in Phoenix. He's been putting really well, and he has a good record here as well, which is kind of there aren't many tracks like that. He's played once, tied 24th. He's a really long hitter, a lot of club head speed. I think this could be a good spot for him. I mean, every area of his game, while he's not dominating, that's why you haven't heard his name in a while. They're pretty good numbers.
I mean, he played so well at the stadium course at PGA West. I mean, he played well in general, but his 2 best rounds that week were both on the stadium course, which is very impressive.
Yeah.
The other thing is he gained strokes all 4 rounds in Phoenix. So I'm in. Fine. I'm in.
It looks better than the contemporaries, right? You go up a little bit. I mean, Ricky Castillo at 7,200, you could play. Again, he's only played 3 times.
Yeah.
His best finishes at tied 15th. Real short game deficiency there. But you start going down to the 7,000s, and
how does Matt McCarty not just destroy this? He is this annoys me more than anything. I'm sure it annoys Matt as well. Wins the Black Desert Championship, his 4th victory in 8 starts worldwide. Since that moment, miscut, 53rd in a no-cut event at the Century, 65th at the Sony Open, cut.
So irritating, so frustrating, and he's had a hard time in every area of the game.
I can't believe it.
I mean, you just look across, you got 1 green strip, everything else is red. It just happened to be all in the same week, and he was able to win. That's what it takes, though. You know, that still will give him. Sometimes with young guys, they win, and then they think they got to make some improvements. You're never going to have more time on tour than right after you win. So if I can work on a couple things,
I've got a couple of years.
So I wonder if he's trying to be something he's not, or he might be trying to make some legitimate improvements, and they're just taking a while.
All right, knock it off, Matt. Figure something out for this week. I would love to see you back, playing well. Anybody else in the 7K range?
No, I mean, there are guys. I was looking like Matty Schmid. This could be a great spot for him. Tristan Lawrence. Maybe this is the time when he gets off the struggle bus on the PGA Tour. But I can't sit here and tell you to guess. You know, I mean, I love those fits, but no. So that's all I got in that range.
$6,000 range. 73 golfers here. Joel Damon, Jackson Suber amongst those 6,900. Mid of the range, that's Paul Peterson. There's Padraig Harrington, Harry Higgs. And then the min-price guys are some of the guys that got in via the international, I think, from the Mexican tour. That would be like Gerardo Gomez, Jose Cristobal Islas. Also, some familiar names like, I guess, Philip Knowles plays a little bit on the Korn Ferry and the PGA Tour. So what are we pulling out of here, Greg?
This is bad, Rick.
Yep.
There's 3 that I like. 2 of them, well, I can't even say that.
Most of these guys have little to no status on the PGA Tour.
Yeah. So we got some issues here. All right. One of them is Luke List, and it's not for a reason you would think. And this is what caught my attention. Luke List, who has been not playing very well, has gained strokes putting in his last 3 events.
Of course he has.
Over 2. Now, he has been driving it well like he always does. He has not been hitting his irons very well at all. But I trust his general ability. And 6,900 with a putter that's been working to some degree feels like it might be worth something.
Oh man, has he?
I
Played
know.
2 years ago.
2 years
Flushed
ago,
it.
and he missed the cut. But
Flushed it,
yeah,
though.
yeah, terrible putting.
I had a
Like-
dream about Luke List. Why did I have a dream about Luke List?
Because he's going to win the Mexico Open.
It wasn't that recently, I don't think. But okay. Well, listen, I love to see that he's putting well. That's okay. I mean, he's fixed one of the 3 problems.
Oh, the guy's so good,
I know.
and he just struggles sometimes. But again, this is really so he's putting well. Luke List is on, let's say it's Friday night, and Luke List is in 3rd place. You're not thinking about all of it. You're going to look at him against whoever there is, and you'll really consider him.
Yeah.
If he is in the top 5 on Friday night. So look, this is why we play the game. We got to take some chances. There's nobody, I promise you, there is nobody perfect in this range.
Far from it.
Will Gordon,
$6,800.
6,800. I love Will Gordon at this kind of venue. I love when there's a lot of long irons. I love when there's space off the tee. It plays right into his hands. He's got 1 start here, and it was a tied 24th finish. And he's coming off a tied 7th at the Farmers, another golf course where you got to hit a lot of long irons into the greens. He was tied 69th in Phoenix as well. But that's 3 straight made cuts for Will Gordon. I think he continues in Mexico this week.
T24 in 2023 for Will Gordon. That's his only visit. Okay. What else you got? I'm hanging on to. I've got 2. They are very dart throwy.
Okay. I've got 1 dart throw. Then I want to hear both of yours.
Okay.
6,300 Matthew Riedel.
Wow.
Yeah. He just got onto the PGA Tour through Q School. He's
T4 at Q School. Okay.
Yeah, he's very good. Struggled at the Farmers, missed the cut, tied 51st at the American Express. But in just the 2 rounds at the Stadium course, he gained nearly 5 strokes approaching the green.
Yeah.
So I just think this kid's really impressive. If you hear him in an interview, it's staggering.
Is he like your neighbor? How do you know this guy?
No, we had him on the radio show a couple months ago.
Okay.
When he got in through Q School, we had him on.
Got it.
And he's just really impressive, really put together. And I think he's going to find his way out here. So
from Vanderbilt.
Why not this week? Yes, from Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has a new golf house. It's like a $10 million.
Oh, I saw it. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Oh.
He's in the video or given the tour in at least one of the
Oh.
videos.
Okay. Got it.
Yep, he was a senior there. So really good player. I think we're going to get something out of him soon, hopefully this week.
Okay. I'm looking at where is he? His name is Carl Phillips. And here he is. $6,600. Carl Phillips, I don't know what's going on. He was the Korn Ferry Rookie of the Year last year. So finished runner-up at the NV5. He won in Utah. That was in August. He gets his tour card. Hasn't played. 0 events. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he didn't want to play. I don't know if he couldn't get in.
No, I'll tell you what's going on. He wanted to be fresh for Mexico.
He wants to be fresh for Mexico. Maybe.
Take a little time off. So what are you just taking a chance on that because you don't know?
I know he's a very good player, and I have not heard that he is dealing with anything. So what am I mean, he played in Australia in December. He is Australian. Maybe he said, hey, I'm going to take the month or 6 weeks and be at home, and then I'm going to come back and get going. And I'm not going to rush back to play the Sony or the American Express. I don't know what he's thinking, but the guy was the Korn Ferry Rookie of the Year. He was like one of the top players on the Korn Ferry Tour. Guy has tour card through Korn Ferry and hasn't played yet.
He only played what, 10 events?
He only played 10 events. He had a win, a runner-up, and like 4 more top 20s.
Crazy.
He got his card through 10 events on the Korn Ferry. I don't know what he's doing, but
he got his card through 4. He had his card in his first 4 events.
Yes.
Right. Tied 13th, tied 15th, second, first. Maybe he's just cruising.
That's enough. That he's done enough. The other one is, I believe it's here, $6,100.
Wow.
Santiago de la Fuente. He's been playing on the Asian Tour, Greg. He played in the International Series in India. That's the event that Bryson played 2 weeks ago. Finished T19. Played in the Philippines the week before that, T31. He gave Live Golf Promotions a shot. Did not qualify. I'm rolling with Santiago de la Fuente, who has played this event twice, missed the cut in 2022, finished T46 in 2024, has been playing on the Asian Tour, is $6,100.
Santiago de la Fuente.
That's a name that should win the Mexico Open.
Yes, that would be unbelievable. Literally unbelievable.
Literally unbelievable. Yeah. I'll take a T42.
Yeah. Hey, you could get that. Why not? I like it. Look, it's not like you're really passing up on anybody.
Oh man, I can't play Mason Anderson, who now is going to win after I said that.
Yeah,
or I can't play Vince Covello. Oh man.
I mean, you got major champions down here, Rick. Francesco Molinari, 6,400.
Oh, Frankie is in this field, isn't he?
Yeah.
Is he the lowest price major champion? He's got to be, right? Is he the only major? No, Padraig's in this field.
Padraig's in this field. Future major champion Norman Zhang.
Yep. He just withdrew, though.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, like just before we went on.
Okay, so he's out. Aaron Baddeley should be a major champion.
Is that it? Two major champions?
I think that's it, Rick.
There's not like a random Danny Willett or anything? No, I don't think there is.
I'm scrolling. Matteo Manacero. He's not a major. You could play Matteo Manacero.
Yeah, so his driving numbers are bad, but I think that's because of his distance, right? He's very short, isn't he?
I think that's right. Yeah. Which isn't great here, but he's at 7,100. The rest of his game's pretty good.
He's very solid throughout the rest of his bag.
Yeah, wow. 2 major champions.
2 major champions in this field. And future major champion. Who did you say?
No, he withdrew.
Norman Zhang. Right, yeah, Norman Zhang. Okay, Gregors, anything else that we need to consider for this week?
Rick, I think we covered it all. Top to bottom in this field that's not the strongest on the PGA Tour, but it's just as much fun.
Top to bottom, left to right, everything has been taken care of. We will be back on Tuesday for the mega preview pod for the Mexico Open. For now, big thanks, producer Josh. He's doing all the hard work behind the scenes. Greg Ducharme at The Real GFD. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.